Hi Virgo, and welcome to your September 2024 horoscope. We start off the month on September 2nd with Uranus going retrograde. Uranus will be retrograde until January of 2025, so there is a lot of time to reflect on what this planet has been trying to teach us. For you, Virgo, Uranus is going retrograde in your 9th house of beliefs. So you might be reflecting on whether your belief systems and the lifestyle you're living are actually in line with your own expectations or are more based on the expectations that society has of you. On the same day, September 2nd, Pluto will be re-entering the sign of Capricorn. Pluto has been going retrograde for a little bit now and officially will enter Capricorn for the final time on September 2nd. It will stay in Capricorn not for very long until middle of November, but hopefully still give us some time to reflect on the lessons of this planet. For you, Virgo, Pluto is retrograding back into your 5th house, so you will be reflecting on whether you are truly stepping into your power when it comes to your creativity and your self-expression. You will also be reflecting on whether you have truly addressed all of the fears that you have around expressing yourself. The next day, on September 3rd, we have a new moon in Virgo in your 1st house. So you might find that you are starting a new chapter as to your leadership, as to how you want to show up, your style, the way you look could be up for question as well. There are 2 aspects during this new moon, though, that give it a bit of a different flavor or give it a little bit more context. One of them is a square between Mars and Neptune, and the second is a conjunction between Venus and the South Node. Mars is in your 10th house, Neptune is in your 7th house. So during this new moon, while you're trying to really be strong, establish yourself as an individual, there might be some tension between your career and your relationship. There might be a bit of this sort of dreamy energy around your relationship. Maybe some illusions that you have around your relationship that are becoming clear. And there might also be a lot of time and energy required by you from your work as well, that perhaps is making it more difficult to relate to your partners, making it more difficult to connect with them on a more spiritual and deeper level. So you can imagine how, while all of this is happening with your relationship, with your career, or the way that others perceive you, your public persona, that it's quite difficult to really step into your individuality and really express yourself. So the new start with this new moon, I don't see it gelling as easily or as nicely. And then the second aspect during this new moon is the conjunction between Venus and the South Node. For you, Virgo, Venus and the South Node are conjunct in your 2nd house. And what this is telling us, whenever we're talking about the South Node, we're talking about habits that are comfortable, but that perhaps are holding us back. So you might have some habits when it comes to your finances, some habits when it comes to the way you take care of yourself, your self-love, your self-esteem. And it might become really apparent on this day how those are holding you back. And they might make it difficult for you, again, to get this new, fresh start in being your own strong, independent individual. So overall, a new moon with good intentions, but I see it being off to a bit more of a difficult start. On the 5th of September, Mars enters Cancer, or your 11th house. So you might find during the month of September that more of your drive and more of your motivation is focused on your long-term goals. You might be thinking a lot about your goals. You might be thinking a lot about where you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years. A little bit later in the month, on September 8th, the Sun opposes Saturn. So the sun is still in your first house and Saturn is in your seventh house. And we see again this axis of you as an individual and you in an equal partnership coming up again. And it might be quite difficult because you might want to establish yourself as your own individual, maybe saying, I don't need a partner, I can take care of myself on my own. And then this other part of you that feels like there are some of those more harsh truths about what it means to be in a relationship, that sometimes you have to compromise, that sometimes you need to support the other person and you don't enjoy doing that. But there is a certain need or a certain understanding that sometimes that is required when you are in a relationship. On September 12th, the sun continues to move through your first house, and now it squares Jupiter. So remember, Jupiter is in your 10th house, so there's a lot of focus on your career. Maybe you're spending a lot of time there. And now that the sun is squaring it, even though Jupiter is a more positive planet, the square does mean tension. So again, we see more of this tension of you wanting to be your own individual, standing truly in your own independent power. And now instead of receiving the sort of tension or friction from your partner, now you're receiving it from your career. So it could be something happening in your career that is making it difficult for you to be independent, to truly set boundaries and be yourself. Later in the month, on September 16th, Mars ends up squaring the North and the South node. Mars is in your 11th house, while the North and the South node are in your 8th and 2nd house. With the North node in the 8th house for the last year, you have been learning how to be vulnerable with others and how to be courageous with being vulnerable. You have been learning the courage it takes to recognize and admit that sometimes you need help and that sometimes you need support, that you cannot always do it on your own. And now that Mars is squaring the nodes, especially from your 11th house, you might be becoming aware of this need for vulnerability, the need for you to be courageous, because you've been thinking so much about your long-term goals and visions. Perhaps you've realized that in your long-term vision, the life you want to have in 5 years, you have a partner, you have a family, and you realize that you cannot get there unless you are truly open and vulnerable with your partner. So again, this can just be one manifestation of that. I'm not saying that every Virgo wants to have a family or a partnership, but hopefully that illustrates some of the things that could be coming up with this square. And then finally, on the 18th of September, we reach our lunar eclipse. So that's right. In September, we officially start the second eclipse season of 2024. We have a partial lunar eclipse on the 18th of September, and then we have another eclipse in October. So this partial lunar eclipse is actually a full moon in the sign of Pisces, which for you, Virgo, is in your 7th house. The full moon in the 7th house might bring you a revelation, and it might make your relationship much more clear and understandable to an extent that you haven't had before. You might understand it much more clearly than you used to. And this could be both in a positive or a more negative way, of course. One thing to keep in mind is, again, it's a full moon in Pisces. Neptune is very close by. So there can be a bit of this more dreamy energy. Perhaps this realization comes up while you're sleeping and dreaming. Perhaps this realization feels like it's a realization that's a bit more abstract. It's a realization that's a bit more dreamy and not so grounded. And I want to encourage you not to dismiss that. I want to encourage you to accept it and just see, because I think over time, perhaps you can find a way to make it more applicable or more grounded into the real world. At the same time, during this lunar eclipse, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto are all retrograde. So honestly, I have been suggesting to all of the zodiac signs to take more time alone during this lunar eclipse, to go out in nature, to spend time in silence, and really, really just grab on this reflective, introspective energy during this time. And even though Neptune is quite close by to the moon during the eclipse, the actual opposition with the sun doesn't become exact until September 21st. So therefore, you might continue feeling this eclipse energy. You might continue to feel this dreamy, spiritual, unconditional love energy all the way up until the 21st of September. The next day, on September 22nd, we have two aspects with Pluto, one a bit more easier one and one a bit more challenging one. So honestly, it's kind of interesting. You should have a bit of a support and a bit of a challenge as well, all in one day. So remember, Pluto has retrograded back into your 5th house. And on this day, it's going to square Venus and trine the sun. Venus is in your 2nd house and the sun is in your 1st house. So your finances or your self-love and self-esteem might show you all of the ways that you really are not stepping into your full self-expression. It might show you that perhaps your self-esteem is holding you back from really facing your fears head on and truly expressing yourself without any care of what others think of you. And at the same time, your individuality, the way that you've been showing up, all of the wonderful work you've been doing this month to stand as your own powerful individual is in a way also helping you with this self-expression. All of the things that have happened throughout the month are also aiding you in continuing to express yourself without that fear or in spite of that fear. Let's close off this horoscope by talking about the last two aspects. On September 29th, we have the Sun conjuncting the South Node. For you, Virgo, this is happening in your 2nd house. We talked about the South Node, meaning habits that feel comfortable but perhaps don't serve us anymore. So you might have certain habits around your finances, certain habits around being independent and overly independent, being overly proud and egotistical about the fact that you can take care of yourself, that you don't need the support of anybody else. And on this day, it might become really obvious how these habits are holding you back and how you can hopefully drop them and become vulnerable, become open with somebody and really showcase this need for connection, need for acceptance, need for being in a close, intimate relationship with somebody. And then the final aspect of the month is on September 30th, when Mars trines Saturn. Mars is in your 11th house, Saturn is in your 7th house, and honestly, your relationship has been probably putting you through it. You have had to be quite responsible, you've had to be quite mature, you've been facing probably quite some real, maybe not so fun things when it comes to your relationship. And you're closing off the month with almost like all of the hard work you've been putting in there is helping you develop further and closer to all of the goals you have for yourself. And vice versa, all of the work that you've been putting towards getting closer and closer to your goals, the little steps you've been taking towards accomplishing them is also helping you to show up to your relationship in the way that your partner needs you to do the hard work there as well. So overall, Virgo, wow, a lot of focus on I want to be an individual, but also I want to be a partner. I want to take care of myself, but also I do need love and comfort with somebody else. So really interesting focus for you during the month of September. I hope you enjoy the month. I hope you can try to find the balance between the two. And I hope that this horoscope helps you and gives you a bit of comfort and a bit more understanding as to what you can expect. I wanted to also thank all of you for subscribing. We finally reached 1,000 subscribers last month. And Rosie Roses 85, congratulations, you are the winner of the giveaway. So make sure you reach out to me, go to my channel, click on the community tab, and reach out to me there so that we can schedule your free reading. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.